Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much. In today's video, I would like to talk about, is there a reading culture in our public schools and even perhaps our private schools for our children? And in the second part of this video, which will be another video, is there a reading culture among academics and our university students, even to the point of PhD? Is there some kind of love of reading and also wealth of reading there? So this will be two separate videos, and in the first video I would like to deal with this issue. Now, why did this issue come up? Recently we hear that the Ministry of Unity, by the Minister of Unity, Dato' Aaron, saying that they will develop this, or the ministry will develop this National Reading Index. Now, in order to do that, they will then be able to gauge and measure what is the development of reading culture among the people of Malaysia. Now, I'm not against some sort of national reading index, although I don't really pay particular attention to them. But I just like to look at the reality of things, Dato' Aaron, and also Malaysians in general. First of all, let's look at the idea of several questions about reading in school with regards to library time, books in the library, and even if there are actually students who cannot read. Now, for the first thing that I want to raise, when I asked the computer what is the reading proficiency among our children in public schools, and the computer answered in this manner. You can see in the screenshot. It says that 122,000 Year 1 student, 27.5% of the total of Year 1 student gagal or fail to actually be able to read. And I have met many of the Malay children when my wife and I was running a tuition class, that they cannot read, or they hardly can read with regard to being in primary 1. And it further goes and says that only 58% of Year 5 can read proficiently, whilst the 42%, I guess, cannot read in in a relatively good manner. And it says also 175,000 Year 6 students, 13%, can't even read properly at the end of their 6-year studies. So when Dato' Aaron says about National Reading Index, I don't know why Ministry of Education is not interested in this aspect of reading. For me, it's a disaster if one of our children cannot read, the more so that they are going to school. So how is it that 122,000 students cannot read in Year 1, and how is it that 175,000 students at the end of 6 years cannot read proficiently? So what are we talking about in terms of a reading culture? If this repeats by year and all that, then forget about the National Reading Index. We need to concentrate more on how do we handle such thing. Now we have the AI. The students can actually read with the AI if their parents are not able to help them. And I think this is something that needs to be looked at very seriously. So don't talk about reading culture when most of our students or our children cannot read. Now, the second thing is that about library books. Okay, when I was young and in St. Mark's Primary, I love going to the library because they have got so many interesting books. They've got a lot of bedtime story books, Walt Disney magazines in abundance, and I would just sit in the library. Before going home, I just have to walk home to my police barrack home, and so I would just pore over all these books or this magazine. sometimes then I was allowed to borrow books like the bedtime stories or other stories, and I would just take home and read them until the day that I began to read any Brighton books and the library doesn't have them. Then I would keep all my whatever money I have from the food money or canteen money and Hari Raya money, which isn't that much at that time, but it's enough for me to buy any Brighton books, second-hand ones that cost 70 cent, 80 cent, and sometimes a new one which costs about 6-7 ringgit. But most of my library at home consists of second-hand books and second-hand comics, Beezer, Dandy, Topper, all this. So the question here is that what kind of books does our library have in the schools? Is there research to show the types of books there are? If we're talking about a reading culture, it must have an interesting collection, like walking into a bookshop. If you notice people walking into bookshop, look at the displays, it's very, very interesting, and you always want to buy a book. Whether you read it later on is another question. So is there research? Okay, is the Ministry of Education interested to look at what type of books there are in the public schools, not only for the children to read, but also for the teachers to pick their interest? How can you expect students to like reading when teachers also don't like reading? And how can they both want to read when there are no books to borrow and also to actually read in the library? So this is something that I think is useless to talk about a national reading index when you obviously have this handicap. I've been to also some private schools, and they don't really concentrate much on libraries, and this is also a sad affair. Libraries that doesn't have interesting books for children to actually want to get their hands on, or even the teachers to actually want to spend time with. Now the third issue is about library time. Is there a library time in our public school? My experience is that there is none. My children experience there is none. My wife, who's a teacher, said there is none, meaning that there is no time for library. The only time is the 20-minute waktu rehat or the recess time, which is not enough. There is also some time when the teachers do not walk into the class, and the replacement teacher doesn't know what to teach, and then they will bring to the library. So it's an accidental library time. Or you have a teacher that is gone on maternity leave, and there's nobody to replace, so again, a library time. This won't do. There should be at least one period of library time for every class 3 times a week, not 5 times, but 3 times a week. We should eliminate some of the science classes, maths classes, Ugama classes, moral classes, whatever there are, and replace it with a free period for reading. The students cannot do anything in the library. They cannot talk to themselves or whatever. They have to pick a book and they have to read. So for 30 minutes, they would just be poring over books, and that would perhaps pique their interest if we can have this. It's so simple. And then we talk about National Reading Index. How can we talk about National Reading Index when there is no time to read? Similarly, is there research to show that are teachers reading? Do they read in their spare time? Teachers, well, admittedly, do teachers have spare time? When my wife was a teacher, I saw that she's just correcting books at night. So, okay, during the school days, she doesn't have a lot of time. That is something maybe we can correct. Sometimes now, a lot of teachers are so busy punching in numbers in the computer for the students' marks, and this takes a lot of time. But there are also holidays, and teachers get quite a lot of holidays. And do they actually read? Is there research that shows are teachers reading? Science teachers, maths teachers, history teachers, geography teachers, all teachers, are they doing any reading? Now, in our civil servant promotion, there is no mark for reading. There is no recognition for reading. I know this. Even in the promotion of a professor, there is no requirement for reading or writing a book. So this is silly to talk about a national reading index when um, even the teachers of our children are not reading. I refuse to believe that they don't have time. They could at least during the holidays at least finish 3 books a year. In my younger days, I could read 10 books a year, but now my eyes are always watery and down to about 5 or 6 books a year, which is not that many. But at least I would read. I would read not on architecture, but on others. Why would I read a lot of architecture? I've already done a lot of reading on that topic as a professor of architecture. But I like to read books like Yuval Noah Harari's prediction about what's happening into the world and things like that. So I think if we have teachers who are promoted based on the breadth of their knowledge through their reading, in interviews they should be asked, what books are you reading, and how does that help you look at your subject as well as your life, as well as you as a person, as a Malaysian. I always ask these kind of questions to a lot of academics who are seeking for promotion, and usually they don't give me a good answer because they don't read. So teachers promoted to guru besar, penolong kanan, no questions about reading at all. And so buat the Malaysia 2 kali 5 lah, orang yang bertanya pun tak membaca, orang yang ditanya pun tak membaca. So elok benar lah tu. Okay, so finally we look at number 5, we look at the assignments. Some of the assignments require students to read not their textbook, but read something else. Now some people say that's going to be very heavy, but obviously there are some very simple books. If we don't have them, then we should write them. Where are the teachers that should be writing these books, and shouldn't they be acknowledged for promotion? Maybe a book about 50 pages or 60 pages, at least there is a sense of that there's a book. Some people believe it's not a book if it's not 200 pages. Who says? I've read many books that are very thin, and I enjoy them because they are written for children, things like that. When I go overseas, or when I was studying overseas, I would go to shops and hunt books that are written for children, like Encyclopedia of Architecture, or Encyclopedia of Buildings, Encyclopedia of Engineering, or books about different kinds of how you make things, how you invent things, and they have got very beautiful drawn pictures. Now you have YouTube, of course, but having these books, and they are supervised or even written by the professors and academics of high acclaim, sometimes mostly with the help of the editors and writers of the publishers. Now we don't have those kinds of culture. Professors in Malaysia, as I said, don't write books. They write journals, or their students write journals, and they get promoted because they have a lot of journals. I know this because I am one of the very few who have published 60 books, while others have never published any book, but they get promoted to professors, many of them. So how can we put out our knowledge to the public, to the children, to the teachers, if we, the professors, do not explain our knowledge in layman terms, and if we are promoted to professors without having to put down our knowledge, then that is a guarantee that the country will never prosper in that direction. Finally, we look at the YouTube and all that. Do we have forums or some people putting out? I was thinking of having a special video on children's book, and looking at any children's book, and then just talking about it, helping the parents to pick up a book. And I think if teachers were able to do this, then they should be promoted, and they should get the rewards or the points for their promotion. But I'm not sure if there is any of these kind of things, and therefore it's ridiculous to talk about what we call National Reading Index when our school is replete or doesn't have any of this culture, perhaps due to budget constraints, or perhaps due to the fact that the librarian is not a qualified librarian, just whatever clerk, just to guard books. And then some headmasters also like their library to be very clean and very proper, and would frown when the students take books and you know, mess it around. For me, let them mess around. Reading requires you to mess around. If you don't do that, then you're not talking about pupils being researchers. Researchers know how to treat books in a precious manner, but children, you need to expect that some books may be destroyed because of their roughness. But of course, this is how they go through. When my children were growing up, I buy books, and then of course I don't mind if they are rosak or they are damaged. Just replace them, or replace them with other new books. And this is how my children have grown up to love reading. So with that, I'm very, very puzzled that the Ministry of Unity is trying to think of a national reading index, but the Ministry of Education doesn't seem to have anything to do with that. And we need to look at how we can raise this reading culture from our school children, looking at whether how many cannot read, and then we have to have special classes for them, special attention. Cannot have students not able to read at all. This is a tragedy, a tragedy. And then does our library have books, and do we have the time to read in classes, periods for reading, as well as the idea of assignments for book reading with geography, history, science, at least one book, and things like that. So with that, we need to look at the reading culture as a whole, and not just devise a national reading index. I don't know how is that going to make us better. Thank you. Hi everybody. If you would like to own my book and have my signature as well as a personal note from me, please follow the instruction. Thank you.